Welcome everyone. I'm Alex from the WISE Office for Young People. I also sit on the WINEMOT editorial committee. Today we've got Phil from the National Safeguarding Unit, and we're going to be talking about the WISE new safeguarding guidance document, and in particularly the diversity framework that sits inside that. Welcome, Phil.
Thank you, welcome.
Cheers. Well, look, to get us started, can you give us a bit of an overview of what diversity means in the sense of safeguarding and the why?
Yeah, beautiful. So obviously at the Y we want every child, young person, specifically in the safeguarding area, to belong, but we actually want anyone who comes into one of our centres to feel like they belong here. And that's what's really, really important, because we all know where you feel like a sense of belonging, you're more likely to thrive and enjoy your time, which is what fundamentally the Y is about. So in terms of safeguarding, the reason why we particularly focus on diversity is that we know particular groups are more vulnerable to abuse. So children living with a disability are up to 4 times more likely to be abused than children without living with a disability. Children who are from LGBTIQ backgrounds are 4 times more likely to be homeless than children from none of those backgrounds. So it's really around us focusing particularly on those vulnerable groups, because we need to know how we can support them and safeguard them better. And another example would be in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children are more represented in the child protection system than any other children, showing those levels of potential discrimination and what can we do as an organisation to try and re-even that kill and such.
Yeah, cool. So looking at the new guidance, what does this mean for our people that are on the front line in service delivery?
Great question. So for people on the front line, really what we want you to do is to really understand the needs of different children. And we get it, you're not going to know every need for every single different child or every group, because it's such a big area and you can't know everything. But there's some real sort of, I suppose, simple strategies you can do, which is just talking to those particular children and young people, their families, their communities. In Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children, talk to the elders who are going to know really about those children and that community and what keeps them safe. But also keep yourself up to date with research and current practice around how do we keep children with disabilities safe, and what some of the practices you can do to make sure you're not putting those children and young people at risk.
Yeah, great. Awesome. It's a very well overdue document as well, so I'm looking forward to it. What about from the business planning perspective? What does this mean for the why on that level? Great
question again. So in terms of business planning, like we say, particularly before you do any activity at the Y and before you embark on a new adventure or even reignite an old adventure, we want you to consider safeguarding at the start. So it's kind of called safety by design. And what that means, particularly in a diversity space, is are you going to be attracting children and young people, particularly in your program, from, say, LGBTI or COLD backgrounds, so culturally and linguistically diverse? If you are, before you even go and do that program, what's the risk assessment you're doing around that? What are you doing if you know that you've got a particular cultural background that you're working with? Have you kept your staff up to date with the latest sort of guidance, recommendations, training to make sure that you're not putting the staff at risk, but you're also not putting those children and young people at risk? So in your business planning, I'd say take it that step back and just think about those groups. And if you don't know much about them when you're going to engage them, get them in, get an organisation who knows really around those children and young people, or even get your community in on a session, maybe do a listening group or a focus group with them and find out what are their needs and build that into your business planning so you can make sure you're not caught out later down the track.
Yeah, awesome. And I guess while you're running hot, do you have any other last tips for our white people when it comes to considering diversity?
Yeah, good. Look, as with the great work you do in the office, is youth voice is the most important part of the work we do, and it's so empowering. It leads to our empowerment strategy. So really, actually, if you've got groups from those different diverse backgrounds, I would actually just hear them. Like, a thing I've been going on a lot about it, and you'll hear us a lot in the guidance, is actually hear them and understand their needs. We can give you some top tips, but actually really listening to children and young people, you're going to know what the nuances are across Australia for those children and young people. And my only other final one is really around, with diversity as always, is challenge that behaviour which is inappropriate or unacceptable. So we see lots of stuff, and we're filming sort of at March, April time of 2021 at the moment. So really what's going on around, particularly around women's rights and what we've seen in Parliament, actually, again, males, for example, calling out that sexist behaviour, those small little parts around the challenge, that's what we need to do in the WISE, is create places where children and young people feel safe, because our staff and our communities feel empowered to challenge that inappropriate behaviour.
Awesome. So kind of like we've all got a role to play in that advocacy, diversity space, and this doc essentially helps us to do that, provides resources.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Beautiful. Well, thanks for your time, Phil.
No, thank you very much.